Welcome back to the Bigger Hunters podcast. Your host Hunter, and then Jeremy.
Dane is no longer part of the podcast.
We kicked him off every time
actually.
we invited him. He was like, "Bro, I can come." He doesn't.
I'll
he's
give
not
him,
here.
I'll give him a legitimate pass. There's a chance his dad broke his knee, so nobody who's listening to this podcast. Well, maybe a select few people know Dane's dad that are listening to this podcast, but if his dad needed help getting to the truck, it's probably not good. And if he got him to go to the ER, which they did go to the ER, it's probably not good. Classic farmer. I mean, just put it that way. So
Yeah, he's been through some things.
So I will give Dane a pass this time. I was a little mad.
Really?
I was a little mad last time, which
Really?
nobody knows about last time because our podcast, the audio was bad.
It was. I will say it was funny because I told Shay, I was like, I got bad news, just like in general. She's like, what? And I was like, oh yeah, our podcast like corrupted and is gone. She's like, so you guys doing another podcast tonight? And I was like, no. Oh, okay. I thought you were asking me if we could do another one. I was like, I mean, we're probably gonna redo it at some point, but
Yeah.
not that night. It sucked because I wanted to put one out on Thursday, but
Well, that's why, like, we'll redo this podcast. I'm probably going to go home and get it up for tomorrow.
okay.
Just real quick because I want to be on the ball with this one.
Yeah,
I
makes
mean-
sense. All right, before we jump to the podcast, I got the cup, so here it is. Beautiful.
Man, I was wearing the shirt last time, too.
I know, I got mine on.
Dang it.
Elkhorn Coffee Co., a company that's only a few miles from us. Biggest thing is I always like to shout out companies that are actually quality. I've had a lot of people reach out to me, but I just don't like dealing with people unless they're like, this is good stuff. So Elkhorn Coffee Co. is basically the only coffee I need to like drink it all now.
That's all I drink anymore, unless, like I'm getting coffee with my mom. But
Yeah.
I love all their stuff. I
So
seriously
you
don't.
hot or cold? How do you make it?
I like cold coffee. What I'll do is I will make, 12 ounces or so, maybe even 16, put it in a container, stick it in the fridge, and then I'll mix it in the morning.
Oh, so you brew it.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a cold brew, like that little plastic deal. So it puts the grounds in the middle, and you have to sit it there for 24 hours.
My mom tried to get me to buy a cold brew setup.
Yeah.
It's too fancy for me, and I
What?
don't know.
Okay, it's the same thing basically. So like there's grounds that put in the middle, you put water into it, and you put it in the fridge.
Oh, well.
So once a week, like my cold brew thing, I think it's 36 ounces. Maybe it's more than that. I think it's 48.
Did you get it off of Amazon?
Yeah,
Send me a link.
it was like $10.
Send me a link.
But you'll see it upstairs. I make like one thing for all week.
Okay.
And every day, like I use my Elkhorn Coffee Co. cup, and then away I go.
Perfect.
So if you guys want some, they've got like the big thing about Elkhorn Coffee Co. that turned us onto them was
Not only the flavor, but
like he has the way he went about his company is partnering with conservation organizations like Delta Waterfowl, Pheasants Forever,
and WTF,
Yeah.
Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Mule Deer Forever.
Yeah.
And I mean, so he's got all these different lines throughout, or coffee grounds that are specific to each foundation. And is it $1?
Yep.
I think it's $1 of every sale goes towards each of those foundations. I absolutely love it. I don't know. I'm surprised I'm sure people have probably done something similar,
Yeah.
but talk about outdoorsmen and coffee. I mean, two things that go together constantly. Another thing I love about this coffee, I don't know if you experience it. One thing about coffee, I'm going to go a little funny here, but coffee will run through you.
Oh yeah.
I don't experience it with Elkhorn.
So-
I've never had issues, And I'm not cussing other coffee brands, but it's just kind of a coffee thing. It's something in the bean that it
Yeah.
just is a hyperactive digestive system. But I
really look forward to sitting. We're planning on sitting down at some point, but the way he goes about his, like, in some ways I've talked to him about it, like the way he does his stuff and the way other people do stuff. Like they put really hardcore preservatives on it, so it could sit on sit in a bag for years.
Yeah.
Whereas he doesn't do that. So actually, like that's what causes that, because it basically sets your system off.
Okay.
But yeah, like if I would have like say Starbucks, and then brew it and have it, do like half an hour, it's like oh.
Oh, and I mean I've witnessed it. You'll have a cup of coffee coming into the truck at the first thing in the morning, and we've got a town that we religiously stop at because it's about 40 minutes into our drive. Yeah. And
I like
the
how
the morning motion is going for Hunter.
You're always saying like, dude, you should just buy stock in that place.
I'm telling you should. They should have a plaque above one of the shitters in there for you. Because we stop there every day. We could be running behind, like aggressively running behind, and Hunter's still gonna stop. And I'm sitting there going, hurry up.
It's gonna happen, or it's gonna happen.
But I've also seen the waiter shuffle a few times from you. So.
Before we get started, we have a code, Big Red Hunt. So Big Red and then Hunt. It's all one. If you get put that in on the discount code, you get 10% off. I've been using it. I spent a lot of money on coffee, but I'm gonna do it regardless. So you might as well support a good brand.
Yeah, I'm due for some more. Actually, I need to stock up.
Because you bought like 4 bags.
Yes, yeah. I wanted to try all the bags. I tried the Delta, the Longbeard, and then the Quail, and then the Pheasant.
Which one's your favorite?
I actually, which I know you could give me crap because it's my true passion, but I'm not a huge like leaning dark roast guy, but I actually really like the Longbeard. I think I don't even think that bag lasted me like 3 weeks. It happened to come in while I was in the middle of a lot of work. So I was drinking some coffee, and it was still, it was during, I drink quite a bit during Snow Goose season 2. So
gotcha.
That's probably my favorite. I like them all a lot. I don't have one that I don't like at the moment.
Pheasant brew when it's hot. It's a medium roast. Quail brew.
The Covey, yeah.
I smash. Every order I always have like 1 or 2 bags of that.
I'll try a couple of the other ones too. I want to try the Public Grounds. Yeah, the one that he's been posting quite a bit for everything that's going on right now.
That just came out.
Yeah, so
that's a good way to go. That's a nice transition.
Yeah, you like that?
So you come out with Public Grounds because we're going to be talking about public land. You've probably seen it on social media about what's going on. Speaking of listeners, but I figured we can give our take and get a little more in depth.
Though we were originally slightly behind the ball on this one when it comes to talking about it, it's really been time. We're not as far behind as we truly are because we did this podcast already. The file got corrupted. I mean, it literally sounded in the mic. It was crazy. I mean, I think we just had a bad SD card because I checked all the connections. It's all fine.
Yeah. So I think that's why that one was up there, because I think I had that problem with my GoPro.
I was going to say, I've used those SDs before and had issues like that. I don't know if they just corrupt easily or what, but so we're going to talk about it again. The man known as Mike Lee. I talk about a name that is... You know what's unfortunate? I know like another Mike Lee, big hunter, grew up.
I've actually found out more information today that made me even more angry.
Oh, dude, the whole thing makes me livid. That's why I told you, I was like, I'm kind of glad we get to talk about this.
Yeah.
There's several points. We were going to try and get Matt from High Prairie to talk about it because he's been he's been pushing this issue for 3 weeks already.
Yeah.
And we talk about it almost every day on Instagram, but he was busy this night and I wanted to get it up, so we're here. But there's so many things.
Okay,
I don't know where to start.
So let's start the Bill of General. This is just a 40,000 foot view. Big beautiful bill. Obviously, Trump wants tax cuts. Mm-hmm. So his other tax bill is in 2017. It sunsets in 2025. If we don't put another tax bill in, basically your tax is going to go up, and it's going to go up significantly. So they're trying to get this bill through. So that way tax cuts will continue to follow. So
And
that way your taxes don't.
It
go
is
up.
an expensive bill. What is it like a? Is it
A lot.
1.2 trillion or something like
Yeah.
that? Is the total number on the bill? I mean, it's a big bill, and I'm not going to go into all the other pieces of it. But so the
main problem about so tax revenue, even like it's like revenue for the government is going to go down because it's tax bill, right?
Mhm.
So tax pretty here there. The biggest thing is to get this thing passed, you have to politic, which people say politics are bad. Politicking isn't itself as bad. You're basically making compromises. That way
As I say,
you can get it passed. But the hard part is all the compromises end up adding up to a bunch of junk that gets thrown into a bill to get it passed.
in these big bills, every state tends to come to the table with something that they want.
Yep.
And Mike Lee from Utah, I'll try and quit talking about the hardcore bill, but Mike Lee from Utah, which has already been an individual who's known for wanting to sell public lands.
He's tried it a couple times now.
He's tried it several times, and he has come to the table trying to sell off public lands. He did it a couple months ago. The House denied it. Where did it get denied first? It had been denied once.
So it was put into the House bill, then the House members took it out.
Yeah.
And then it got passed, so the bills go from Congress, it's going to the Senate, so then the Senate put it in.
So we thought we had gotten past it, and literally within a couple hours, Mike Lee immediately put it back in with to the Senate to try and get it going again, and he upped the ante on it. He apparently started with a couple 100,000 acres.
It was like mostly in Utah,
Mostly in Utah.
He was trying to sell it off to his buddies, and it was like mostly Utah in that general area, Arizona, like desert land. Nobody thinks,
and now
basically nobody wants in his view.
Yeah, and now it's turned in. They want to sell 3.1 million acres spread out over 250 million acres in 11 different states. I wish we had more states like Montana. Montana's senator straight up said, no, keep me out of it. I don't want my state involved. I don't know what he did with Mike Lee that was like...
pound sand.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but nothing from Montana. It's all the western states west of Nebraska.
Yeah.
Colorado,
Wyoming,
Arizona,
Idaho, Utah, a lot in California.
I know now that Idaho's senator is against it. Sounds like Oregon's off the board, and New Mexico. They're really fighting back against it now, which is good to hear.
Yep. Well, they must have got some pushback because.
Well,
I'm surprised. I'm surprised Nebraska's not on it.
Because it's all BLM and National Forest land. We don't have it. Like, we've got like 4 or 5 small chunks of BLM in the far northwest corner. And I'm talking they're like 80-acre sections. The only reason I know they're there is because I obviously scour the map of Nebraska all the time, figuring out places to go hunt.
Yeah.
But, and then most of our national forest is either like... it would be a part of the 350 million acres that have been taken off the table.
Gotcha.
Because they're part of state rec part, or they're parks, they're historical, all those fun things.
So basically, the only land's gonna be sold is Bureau of Land Management stuff.
It'll be a lot of Bureau. It'll be a lot of the national forest that's out in the middle of nowhere that doesn't have a park or anything involved. Now, I was reading into it a little more. Supposedly, Mike Lee has tried to make it so it's only like the land that can be sold is within 2 miles of establishments already, because obviously the way they're trying to push it hardcore is that it's going to be for housing expansion.
Yep.
Now, there is one thing, I don't remember how it was put in it, but in the way Mike Lee wrote it, there was one line that everybody's worried about because it basically would be the equivalent to saying, I'll sell it to whoever I want after this bill's passed. I can't remember exactly how it reads. If later tonight when I'm putting this up, I have the mental capacity to do it, I'll throw up that line that I'm talking about for those watching. But...
Well, that's the hard part is a lot of times in those situations when it's just gray enough, they'll do it, and then it ends up where, it might end up in court, but who's got the money to just fight him on it?
Yeah,
Like, who's got money to
exactly.
fight the government, basically, to sell it?
Exactly.
And it's already done. By that time, it's just a mess.
Yeah.
So then it ends up getting looped, and it just, yeah. It's basically for him to be able to get away with that stuff.
Yeah.
But the funny part is, the big thing, what I was saying was, and we were talking to a podcast last time, is like, the big thing I always said was, as a general, is like, there's money involved.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know where the money was involved, but now
you do.
But now I do.
Did you figure it out?
So guess who is the biggest donator to Mike Lee's campaign?
Oh man, I gotta imagine it's probably oil.
Nope.
No, really.
Tech company.
Oh. So China.
Nope.
No, really.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dang, you're talking like.
It's a tech company. Biggest landowner in the U.S.
Oh, I don't know who. I mean, is it
Microsoft.
Microsoft?
Bill Gates. Bill Gates wants something. Bill Gates wants land. There's obviously some parts of these lands that he wants. For what reason? I don't know. I think, to be honest, and this is my personal opinion, I think Bill Gates is nothing but a squirmy worm. Like, Microsoft as a whole is a good thing, but like everything he's done since then, like, I'm not going to get too down the far of the rabbit hole, but Bill Gates was one of the main pushes in COVID, the COVID vaccine, everything.
Yeah. I won't get too far down the rabbit hole on this one either. My only... I don't know if it's ever true. Somebody's probably going to hear this, and if you hear it and you know the truth about it, feel free to message me at, Huntfish365, because I'll gladly have a conversation about it. But I always heard that whenever Bill Gates dies, he's going to donate anything that he owns. Like, his kids apparently are going to get nothing.
Yeah, but the problem is, like, that's his personal assets. How much of his personal assets are, like...
I agree.
Like, they're in trust, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, he might say that he's donating all of his personal stuff, but if it's all in income, or if it's in family trust or incorporated trust, like, he might have a few million in his, for his own name, but that ain't much. I'm sorry, I got nothing good to say about Bill Gates. I
don't have much good to say either. I'm not gonna say I have as bad as you would say. I know I mean I didn't agree with him on the whole COVID push either, but
well, he's always been the one that's a part of the World Economic Forum where basically you don't own anything. Mm-hmm. You rent everything and you eat bugs.
Yeah.
Like, there's no beef anymore. You need to eat bugs. Plus, then, like, my other question is, how much of this land is going to get sold to China?
Yeah.
Like, I know this is very far-fetched and it's very out there, but the fact that Israel managed to get into Iran and set off drones and basically destroy the air defense system, what's to say China owns land basically next to every base in the U.S. So
yeah, I'm curious. I would love to be a fly on the wall in the room with Trump and Vance, because Vance is very anti-China, owning land in our country.
Yeah,
and if it was his decision, he would, give him a boot.
I would revoke revoke the ability for not only China but Chinese nationals to own any land, or even Chinese companies. You can rent land, or you can rent buildings, but you can't own it. That's what, if I had that opinion, because like, do you think you personally, Jeremy, do you think you can own, like, if you were an established businessman, you think you can own stuff in China?
Oh no, I mean they would.
No,
I mean I bet China doesn't even sell to any of the Asian countries around them.
Yep.
So no, I mean I've never felt comfortable about them owning land, anyways, and I will say, I don't know if in this situation China would end up with much land, but if the public land does get sold, my biggest fear is it's gonna go to corporations. I mean that's.
I would say corporations, but Dalton and I had this conversation. I think it's gonna end up in a lot of ranches.
See, yeah, we
And
talked about
it's
that
not
the other
it's
night,
not
too.
family ranches. Family ranches can't afford that. It's going to
No.
be massive incorporated ranches and
Yeah.
farming.
The other thing, I've been seeing a lot of people pushing this. What's to say it doesn't turn into a situation where we get pieces of public land that close off other portions of public land because it becomes privatized, and inevitably, if they privatize it, there probably won't be an easement.
Yep.
I mean, so you're getting double whammied there. I saw that one the other day, and I hadn't even thought about that angle.
Yep.
Because those western states, I mean, I know you, other than Montana, don't have much experience on the public lands out there, correct? You probably been in Colorado.
I've been in Wyoming and Colorado. I mean, I guess more of my wouldn't be less hunting and more like ATV stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've been
all the BLM land and stuff.
Because I've been in South Dakota and Colorado for that.
See, I'm really partial to all that land out there because the western half of this country is where I've completed most of my turkey states. So I've seen a lot of these states. I've elk hunted in Colorado and Wyoming, and we go backpacking in Wyoming every other year or so. So I've had a lot of experience with it, but there was a reason this whole. It's so crazy that this is happening on the backside of all which we never did a podcast or anything on all the border crossing stuff that finally, courts decided that they were in the wrong, and public access should be accessible even if it is through corner crossing. And now we could literally run into a situation where if the right piece of public land is sold, it could close off thousands of acres, because a lot of those big sections are one road. Like, that's what'll get you in there, and then there's logging roads and stuff like that. And especially on those national forests and those BLM lands. I mean, I've got in Wyoming a couple years ago, while we were elk hunting, we were on one section of BLM, and we were on the only road going through it for like 30 miles. I mean, it was just a long stretch of BLM. And I mean, it's
crazy. My experience, just because of going to Montana, is like you have this one road. Nebraska, listeners, I would say, if you haven't been to Nebraska, everything's usually pretty squared up and gridded,
especially on the east side of the state. Not so much the west. You'll get really big chunks on the west.
But you're very gridded, where basically where all the land markers are, because there's usually fences and or the changes in fields and stuff. Like, everything's usually pretty clear. So driving down a road, you have to be very specific on where you're going because you're on a piece of private land. But up in Montana, it was just here's a road. You could be driving on public or private land for 10 miles on the side of their property, next to a fence, just so you can access a piece of public. And it was very unnerving for me. No, I get very nervous about that.
It's new. It's definitely not something you're used to. Or that we're used to. Me more so a little bit, just because I've spent some time in those states. But I just had never thought about that angle before. Which especially if it was some rancher. Especially if it's BLM land, because BLM land is
difference between a rancher and a corporation. Those corporate boys, they'll send 2 or 3 dudes out in a truck and come scream at you.
Oh yeah.
And
they pay people to do that.
Oh yeah.
There's one ranch out in western Nebraska. It's Giant Ranch, and one of our mutual friends likes to hunt in that area a lot, and they literally have ranchers that drive around during rifle season. And I mean, if you even pump the brakes, and I mean, they've got public that's on the other side of the road from their ranch. But if you even pump the brakes, man, you'll watch a truck just fly towards you. So
classic.
Yeah, it's crazy, but
it doesn't surprise me at all. That's sadly, but that's just the state of our world. Okay, so back to what we're saying. So 40,000-foot view, basically the Republicans ran on the fact that they want to cut the amount of spending that's in the government. Well, you got this big bill that has a bunch of spending on it. So how are we going to fix the spending? Offset it by revenue through selling land. Basically, our government has overspent themselves to a hole. Now they're trying to backtrack and sell land in order to bring themselves revenue so they don't look bad. That's what it comes down to. And then obviously, people that are supporting it, they're getting money in their pocket. And I think that, and this is just my opinion, but I think some of these senators from red states out in that area, or even some blue, like, and I will say that this is something that came up to me. I saw Matt post a video, but like there is a very surprising coalition that's building. Coalition meaning like a group of people that are building up. Like obviously the hunters and fishermen like really care about this.
Oh,
But like the amount of like hikers and like nature
So,
like people that have gotten to this.
I was talking about this with Terrell last night, and I said this might be the only time in our lifetime that PETA and outdoorsmen will be on the same page.
Yeah.
I mean, legitimately might be. I mean, I know PETA is a long stretch for the group we're talking about here, but
yeah.
I'm sure that they're not happy about this bill.
Yeah.
I obviously don't follow PETA and I don't pay attention to them, but and I'm not really throwing shade because if they're supporting it, I'm all about it. But legitimately, there are people that you would never see sitting in the same corner right now on both sides of the political aisle too. I mean, 2 weeks ago, we had people fighting in the streets in a couple states. And now we've got people making sure that we don't lose our public lands, that we're fighting each other. I guarantee it. Or at least verbally fighting with each other online.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I go back to, I think of a podcast that I listen to between Joe Rogan and a gal that is a wildlife biologist that was one of the ones who helped get wolves back into Montana. And like Joe Rogan's been extremely forward about his opinion with wolves and how he basically hates them.
He's really good friends with Steven Rinella.
Yeah, and he's a big elk hunter and hunter in general, but like he's been extremely clear about his point of wolves and how they just wreck the
ecosystem
in the whole area and gets to the point where they just like destroy elk herds
and they're out of
deer
control.
Populations, everything. So he sat down and like had a conversation with her about it, and like he obviously asked questions and was curious. And like the thing that the nice part about this situation like talking about is like, even though like the weird nature hippie guys, like I think they're weird. They think we're weird because we're killing things. But the fact that we both understand the base level of how much nature impacts our lives and gives us peace, that agreement obviously helps this scenario to where it's like
that deep sigh of relief is seen by both groups.
Yeah.
That when you're, for us, it's sitting under a tree or walking through a field or sitting in the duck blind, and that first 30 minutes of light, I will trade an entire week of my life for one of those mornings where it's still and you're listening to the world wake up or whatever, and it's just the calmness of that.
So if you could pick out one hunt on public land from last year, which one would you pick?
For
just out of your year last year.
Spring and fall?
Yeah.
How about this? I'll do fall. One for fall, one for
fine.
spring.
That's fine.
One for fall. And we had some damn good duck hunts, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But seeing all those pheasants after that failed duck hunt.
Yeah.
I giggle inside. Just thinking about on public land, all those birds coming out of the grass like that. In a state where we've really struggled with our pheasant numbers for the last decade.
Yeah.
And it was like really, really like nice. And we hunted there quite a bit throughout the season. And I mean, there's still plenty of birds there. Like there's still going to be plenty of birds there next year.
Yeah.
And we'll be there. But that was so much fun.
I think for me is like, I think it's because we're going back to Montana, so I'm focusing more on it now and like honing in on the perspective. But like the first evening we went and hunted that spot that Dane did, and it's nothing to do about this, but I snaked that bird from you, dude. The fact that we were just sitting there giggling like little schoolgirls for like a good half an hour, just joking about it.
I didn't find it that funny until later, but
I know. But I did.
I know you did. You love the snake. I should make a compilation of all the times that you and me shoot at the same damn bird, or one of us snakes a bird from the other one, because it happens a lot.
But like, I just now, of course, like, it's hot, it's June, like, it just, you start thinking of September, and the fact that that evening happened was just. That was a good time.
Oh yeah.
But I remember the pheasant hunt. But yeah, I would pick probably that night in Montana.
Yeah.
That was fun. So yeah. It's just like the experiences that you can receive. And the big thing too is like, I think what almost makes me the most frustrated about it is like, I would say there's two things. One, obviously, like when I think about that scenario with Montana, like the bird, it was cool. It was cool to kill the bird. I already killed a grouse, so like that wasn't that big a deal. But it was like the experience, and like you see a bunch of photos from some of these guys about like pieces of land, and they actually know, like they've been and experienced a piece of land that they could possibly sell.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I made a massive post. I posted it's the limit on Instagram, like 12 pictures you can post.
Yeah.
All those pictures were from public land. Some of them in Nebraska, but many of them from some of these western states that could get sold.
And there's like some of those guys are like, "Oh, this is a legit piece of land that could be sold." And like you have generations of memories that have taken place on that could just be gone.
Especially if you get into the big game world out there. I've run into people in Colorado and Wyoming while elk hunting that have been like, "Yep, we've been coming to the same unit. I'm the third generation coming to this unit. My grandpa started coming here, then he took my dad, and then my dad brought me." And they go to the same camp. Big thing out there for the elk hunters is with the aspens. A lot of guys will like engrave into them. So, I mean, you're talking about land that people have been all over for decades. I mean, obviously, and, I'm by no means fighting back against the cause that we support here.
Yeah.
But obviously, like, in the big scheme of things, it, like, the chances of them selling the piece that you were on is, like, less than 1%, but still, that 1% somebody inevitably has been on. Somebody has inevitably found a way to hunt it. And especially, like, you're talking about if they do expand into the areas that are within 2 or 3 miles of your populations, there's people in those populations that are enjoying those public lands that don't want to see them disappear. I mean, think about where we live. I have this conversation. Granted, you didn't grow up here, but I have this conversation with my parents all the time. And, I mean, this place is like twice the size as it was when my parents were kids. Yeah. And I'm starting to get to the age where I see areas, blocks of, a section that I was like, I used to have a lot of turkeys and deer in it. Especially the south side of town. There used to be turkeys and deer all over the south side of town, and now they've completely developed those areas. Yeah. And, there obviously was probably quail and pheasants and ponds and marshes. I mean, it destroys wildlife. Yeah. And I understand there's more and more people each year. Like, that's a sad reality about this world, is we are a population that's constantly growing. We never go backwards in population. And so I get that land gets destroyed, but public land's for everyone.
Yeah. The other thing that I struggle with is the fact that I just we've talked about it on the podcast, and like I know this is gonna come out wrong, but there's something that makes me, I don't know, frustrated is like a lot of it's gonna get sold off to ranchers. I don't hate cows, but I don't like cows. And the fact that it's just like really natural, beautiful land that's just how many millennia, depending on what you believe in evolution or whatever, creation theory, whatever. So like thousands of years of just natural land.
Yeah.
And it's going to get destroyed by cows.
Well, and I mean, see, in a lot of these states, like, and
BLM land does get leased out for.
Some national forest does too.
Yeah.
In certain states, certain areas. From at least I've seen cows on them, and I'm in the same boat. In fact, I adamantly cannot stand cattle. It can be done properly because obviously the claim is that grazing is really helpful.
Yeah.
Specifically to upland species. But the way our state does it, I'm sorry, I've walked on too many destroyed properties because of cattle, especially in drought years.
Yep.
Which we run into every couple years. We have drought years. You get a couple wet ones and then a lot of drought. But
well, it's just like right now you got a piece of land. Say if you like, which made me mad the other day. I saw some farmer that was mowing his grass, which
don't even get me started.
We'll get there.
And I I love Dane to death.
Yeah.
But even I argue it with Dane, and Dane understands, and he wishes he didn't have to. But he's been cut. Part of the reason he hasn't been able to get to the podcast because he's been cutting hay.
Yep. And
he knows that I'm like adamant, no hay cut till July.
Yep.
Like I am hell bent. If it was my way, if I had the money, I would buy land simply to not let people hay it until like mid to late July. And you wouldn't be able to hit it the way you do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like I said, don't get me started. That's all.
My problem about him was he wasn't even haying it. Like, he was just mowing it. And then the grass was just knocked down.
The guy you saw?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, if you look at the ditches right now, they're pretty long.
Mm-hmm.
My problem is, like, Jeremy and I were talking about this today. If we continue to get rains, like, this could be a decent year for waterfowl.
Could be.
The problem is it could go really one way or it could go really the other way.
We are at the point in the year where if we can get the rains that we need, though I don't think everything will fill up unless we get a full-blown flood, we'll have the moisture to do so. But we're at that turning point where if we don't get much more, it's going to be dry again. It'll be dry again.
Yep.
So.
I mean, I was out towards Danes and it was starting to look dry.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with it. Not only being 100 degrees, but 100 degrees and windy.
Yeah.
Dries things out real fast. And it, kind of is what it is. It's natural, but it sucks.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, we'll see about that part. But, like, you get like right now, you get some long grass. But if it doesn't, it doesn't rain anymore, like, cows go in there and graze it, and then graze it to nothing, and then stomp the rest of it into, dead soil.
Oh, yeah.
Guessing you're not going to get anything more.
Perfect example of it is Shay's grandparents' place.
Yep. Don't say it. 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 Okay, you can say it.
I think that property's a wasteland. Like a disappointing wasteland.
Oh, I know you know.
Mad. I know you know it, and I know you've expressed interest in trying to change it, but
I even offered them to pay. Yeah. Try to figure out how to pay the difference.
Well, think about
we were talking about putting in a CRP, and I'd make up the difference.
See, the thing is, I'm pretty sure if you put that whole property in a CRP, there would be more money.
I think so too.
I think you wouldn't be able to. I don't think you'd be able to go full blown CRP. You'd have to find a different program.
Yeah,
because it's not cropland. But I think you would legitimately be able to make more money than they're getting paid for the cattle on that property. But
Maybe.
I mean, I tell Dane all the time, down in the bottom of his property below the cabin, I'm like, hey, I'm dead serious. Let me know what, because I know that the farmer that they allow to have cattle and that puts cattle in there doesn't pay a ton.
Yep.
And I've said, hey, let me know how much he's paying a year, because I would pay that if it's something I could do just to change that bottom into a wildlife mecca, because it would. That whole oh my gosh, dude. I mean, we could get pheasants going down there hardcore. It would help the turkeys. Deer would move over there like crazy.
Yep.
A quail would explode in that bottom. It would be insane. Trust me, I have a whole plan whenever that does happen. So
Someday.
I'll probably be 50, but
I mean, I'm gonna get to do what I want with that other land when it gets to that point, but
Yeah.
I gotta get to that point.
and I don't wish that point, so for anyone.
Me either, but just cycle of life.
Yeah. But
I would do. God, there's so many things I want to do with that pond. I'm gonna take a massive.
it's a whole other
I'm
podcast.
gonna dig out that whole
I
corner.
know.
I'm gonna dig out I'm gonna get as much out as I can.
I think you could add a solid 2 acres to that pond.
Yeah.
So
Dig it out, make it deeper. Might leave some of that corner a little bit just so I can plant stuff over there.
yeah.
But I'm gonna dig it out so it's not so silted in. The other part of the pond that I dig out, that's some of that dirt that I might put over in that corner so it's not as bad. So, yeah, and I also wanted, if that's the point, I'd probably almost think about digging a pit into that corner. Way off topic.
Yeah, say
It's a thought, but
thought
we'll see.
you'd have to do like a half out of ground pit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'd have to get it higher, because if that pond flooded real good, your pit would be a disaster.
Yep.
So, uh-oh.
I'll go ahead and pause it. All right, we're back.
Hunter's house is falling apart.
We have like 40-mile-an-hour winds. That is like one of my biggest frustrations about this house is living on this side of town where there's no wind block, and I get all of the wind.
And there ain't going to be much more of a wind block for you with that school there.
And it just frustrates me.
Yeah.
So there's nothing I can do about like now, but
Yeah.
my gate fell apart apparently, or both gates apparently fell apart.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. So, yeah. Nala's tried to Nala's almost gotten out of our fence. I think she's gotten out of the fence like 3 times.
Really?
Thank goodness. She's a good dog. But yeah. A couple times she was hanging out. One time she was hanging out in the garage with the family. Second time she was out there with Shay and she wasn't paying attention. Thanks, Shay. And thank goodness she doesn't listen to this podcast. She'd give me crap about later. And then apparently the gate was completely broken and she got out this time. So, yeah. Oh, well. Okay, so public land. Let's get back to that. So, biggest thing is, obviously the biggest thing for listeners is you need to contact your senators. You need to call them. And you can call them several times. Majority of the time, I say 99% of the time, you're just going to get a voicemail.
And if you don't want to call them, you can email them too.
Yeah.
Onyx has a link to the Theodore Roosevelt Foundation.
Yep.
That has a whole email system set up. I mean, if you have the time, call and email them. Just flood it.
Okay, so I was listening to a podcast. It was really good. It was actually about social media in general, but the idea is that the senators used to have a better, in my opinion, or in his opinion, was a better feedback loop, meaning when senators would do something and want feedback on a certain thing to make a decision on how they're going to vote on it, they used to take phone calls and they used to take letters. They used to be the main form of contact. Mm-hmm. Letters was number 1. Number 2 was phone calls. And then they would usually use a service like Gallup to go take surveys.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is a lot of times our senators right now are using social media to do that. And there tends to be a type of human being that's on that, especially on Twitter or Facebook, that tends to lean one certain direction and complain all the time. So the feedback loop that they have isn't as good as it used to be because it doesn't really show everybody's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So he said from what he's been told, their feedback loop is if you are one phone call or one letter, they estimate that you probably you are about 100 people that have the same opinion as you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think of, hey, my phone call doesn't matter, it really
does.
They think of you as 100 people.
And I won't even lie. I can sit here and tell you I'm one of those people that struggles to be like, I'm going to make the phone call or I'm going to send that email. And I did. And I will likely do it again before.
Yeah.
Because I don't know when are they voting on it on the.
It's all.
I've heard the 25th.
It's on committees right now. So basically, I would say in the next week, they'll start. Here's my opinion, and I've seen some stuff that's come out from insiders that they're starting to catch some feedback and that they're thinking about taking it out. Here's the thing. Mike Lee is kind of snaky as he is. He's going to start taking out the high priority stuff, but his next argument is either stuff that's right next to civilization, right? Because his biggest argument is he wants low cost, affordable housing. That's his argument, right? So he's gonna start saying, well, let's just sell stuff that's right around like that we can boost our economy on. That what's gonna happen. So we need to continue to push so that way he gets enough pushback that doesn't happen. Yeah, because that's gonna be okay. We might not get everything. But if he can snake in there that he can sell a little bit around, but also leave the wording in the bill just gray enough that they can start doing it on other stuff, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
So you need to...
That's why it's so important. I mean, it's one, obviously, once it's gone, we don't get it back. But
yeah.
Two, once you go down that road, which Utah's been known for going down this road. I mean, the government gave them... I don't remember how many acres of land that were, federally owned.
Yep.
And they've sold over half of it because they, it came to a state level and they sold it because they either didn't want it or couldn't afford to take care of it properly.
Yeah.
But, so once if Mike Lee gets his way at any point, it's going to continue to go, and he's gonna want more.
Yeah.
I mean, he's personally, in my opinion, he's a very greedy individual. I'm very disappointed to know that he isn't in the same party that I tend to lean with. I mean,
there's just that I think I brought up in the last podcast, but there's a sect of Republicans that are called Commerce Republicans, and they believe in basically the privatization of everything. It doesn't matter if it's healthcare, if it's science, universities, like they want everything privatized. They want and the biggest thing is there's a fine line between like having an open market, right? Like obviously there's a good feedback loop. That's how so much wealth was created in the U.S. is because of the free market system. But there's a fine line of taking that step across free market into where everything's just owned by massive corporations.
Yeah. And
I very much disagree with that because I think that they're definitely, we didn't want to bring it up, but there's a guy on Facebook. Didn't seem very intelligent. I will
gladly bring it up.
Basically said like it's a handout to have public land.
Yeah, he essentially referred to public land as being, comparative to food stamps. The government owns it and they should be able to do whatever they want with it, and it's not really for the people. It's just, and yeah, he referred to it as being a handout, and I actually took wild offense to that. I was like, that is craziness to say.
Yep.
Now, we were arguing about something else beforehand, but he wasn't already on my good side. But then he said that, and I just like, dude, that's insane to say. So, um,
Kind of is one of those, like, both Jeremy and I kind of just shook our heads at it because it was like, are you kidding me?
yeah, it was.
Because he, like, the number one advocate of public lands was Theodore Roosevelt,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
He's the reason we have most of the lands that we do to access right now.
yeah,
On a federal level, that is. You know, he started the BLM and the National Forest, and I mean, he set aside Yellowstone, and
pretty much all the parks.
yeah, really all the parks.
He was the one who pushed the bill that
Mhm.
would set up those lands as national lands, federal lands to be used for park system.
I saw one. I'm a big TikTok guy, I won't lie, but I saw one TikTok that was that map of all the potential acres that these 3 million could come from.
Yep.
And it was somebody just rolling in circles, and the caption was Theodore Roosevelt rolling his grave at the site of this potential bill, and it was just a constant loop of the guy rolling. I mean, could you imagine if he was still alive, the shitstorm that he would be causing right now?
Oh yeah.
And I mean, not only was he like, you talk about the fact that he was a Republican, but he was also an avid outdoorsman, an avid hunter as well.
Yep.
He wanted the turkey to be the federal bird.
He got that wrong.
What?
I said he got that one wrong.
I don't know. I like the turkey enough to make the federal bird, but it ain't the federal bird. But
So funny story. So I was golfing today, right? And they have that part of that course. There's those eagles that nest over there.
mhm. They have it closed off still.
No. So like they have it set up to where it's called a quiet zone, so you're not supposed to make any noise. Like you're supposed to stay away from them, whatever. Every time I feel like whenever I see an eagle, I'm always like, those things are freaking massive.
They are big birds.
And there was 2 younger ones and then an older one, and like there was one that I'd rolled by and I was going up to the green, and I look over and there's legitimately like some sort of, I think it was a barn swallow that was like attacking this eagle, this like boom, boom, boom coming to his head. It was the funniest thing, and this eagle's just like making, eagle noise. I can't make it, but like making eagle noise and like trying to like bite at it. It was so pissed. It was like, leave me the frick alone. I'm just trying to chill, bro. It was hilarious to watch. He's just dive bombing his head. I don't know if the eagle just like went after its nest or was just there. I don't know.
Well, a lot of smaller birds will attack hawks, owls, eagles, because they're small enough and they're agile enough that the eagles can't catch them, or the hawks, predator birds can't catch them other than like falcons.
Yeah.
But so you'll see that quite a bit. But
it was pretty funny to watch.
It is funny when you
drives
see
me
it.
nuts. So I walk out of work and there's just enough lip around where the front door of my office is.
A bunch of swallows.
Yes.
Yeah,
they just like come out of nowhere. You're not paying attention. They
Good
just
old
like
barn swallow.
freaking swipe at you.
Yeah.
Those things can get into anywhere. I tell you what.
Mm-hmm.
My neighbor across the street, I don't think they know it. I meant to talk to him about it. There's a vent, I'm assuming, for their addict. Just like
they love those.
He just was watching and they just get in there, and I was like, I bet they're making a mess in that house.
It's exterior season. I've cleaned a many a nest. Generally old nests. I try to, unless the customer asks us to leave. If it's got eggs and whatnot in it, I try not to take it down. But
I had one set of birds that made a nest on my fence last year, and
yeah,
I didn't want that bird poop on my house.
It's fair. But
because they poop on everything.
They do. Swallows poop on everything.
I bet that whole corner of the fence would just be nothing but poop.
Yeah.
I don't like barn swallows.
Oh, I'm not big on them either.
I don't mind sparrows, but oh well. But they're on public land. I don't know. I don't really have anything else.
I've got two things. One, I'll touch on it first because I think it will become a little bit longer of a conversation, and this is part of the reason I wanted Matt to come on, because I think he would have been very adamant about this view, and I would have loved to have heard his opinions on it. But so through all of this that's been happening, we've got all the foundations and the communities, and specifically your big game, your upland, and then anyone involved in turkeys has been really like pushing this whole issue. And I really hadn't realized it until Matt said something the other day in one of his stories, and I commented on it, and we had a short conversation about it. But where the hell is the waterfowl world on this? I mean, I haven't seen Ducks Unlimited or Delta Waterfowl get involved in this campaign whatsoever. I saw one today. I think it was Dive Bomb made a post about it, but that's like, I mean, that's just a company.
Yeah.
But Matt was real worked up about it, and I agree with him. I mean, yeah, I get it. They're western states, and a lot of the land that would go to sale are not going to affect waterfowl hunters, but we really need to stand up as a whole community on this one. That's why I'm all about anyone, even, people that don't hunt and fish, that just like to hike and go camping and whatnot. And, like, even though we may not see the wildlife the same way,
yeah,
I am proud to say I'm glad that you're standing up with us.
Yeah.
I'll sit here and make the argument that hunters and fishermen generally get the most use out of public lands, in my opinion. That's just how I feel about it, because it's a very big community, whether people think of it as a big community or not. But going hiking and camping is kind of becoming a little bit of a lost, I don't know if I'd say art. People don't do it as much in society nowadays. You go back 20, 30 years, people would go camping every weekend because they wanted to get their kids out of the house. Now they just push them in front of a TV.
I think hiking is still popular, but I feel like it's being consolidated to just like certain areas. Like there's hiking trails.
Yeah.
It's not like
people don't explore.
I'm not going to just go to some public land and just go for a walk.
Yeah.
Like they want to go to Colorado on a trail.
But even you say that, there's like 10,000 miles worth of trails.
Yeah.
That are in these 250 million acres.
Yeah.
That could potentially get sold. But still, I hadn't really realized it until he had mentioned it. But I actually think it's kind of crap. It's disappointing to see that community as large as the waterfowl world is kind of like hasn't seemed to get too involved in it. And the only thing that I can guess is because in the waterfowl world, so many people try to make it a point to make sure they get on private land. And a lot of it's in the eastern half of it. I've seen several comments on posts of guys that are like, I live in the east, this doesn't bother me, so I've never even been to these 11 states, it doesn't matter to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, there's plenty of national forests and other state or government type lands in the east. I mean, especially if you're looking at it from a turkey hunter's perspective, in Alabama alone, there's several 100,000 acres of national forest land that you can go hunt.
Yeah.
Tennessee, everything that I was around was national forest land when I was there this year. Kentucky's got a lot of it. I mean, all these states have national forest land, and if they ever are like, hey, let's go take these states, which would be, the other side of the country when it comes to population densities. I mean, talk about an area where people would be like, man, we really could use more affordable housing for all these people that are here. I mean, at one point, do they they sell 3 million acres over here. They're like, well, let's try and sell another 2 million acres on this side of the country.
Yeah.
Who's to say that doesn't happen? And my point is that it's a bummer to know that there's people in the hunting community that think it's just like, all right, that's just one side of the aisle. It'll never affect me. When in the Southeast in particular, some of these states have tried to sell some WMAs that are big waterfowl WMAs in the past, and they flip a lid.
Yeah.
The waterfowl world flips a lid. And everyone that's ever thought about waterfowl hunting in those states is like involved.
Yeah.
And I'm really not calling out the small guy for the most part. I can't open my phone without seeing something from Onyx, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, anything that has to do with deer, anything that has to do with turkeys, anything that has to do with upland. Randy Newberg is all over my page. A lot of these other Western hunting influencers, if you will, and that was another thing I've seen some people complain, is that you got a lot of these quote-unquote social media influencers that have just kind of turned a blind eye because they only hunt private land.
Yeah.
And I will say this to anyone who's listening to this and you're going, well, I have private land, it doesn't affect me. Just remember this. If 3 million acres of public land gets sold, 3 million acres worth of hunting, fishing, whatever land that people have been using for decades is now gone, and those people are going to be looking for a new place to hunt, and that very well could lead to them trying to find private around you. It's just going to add pressure. If public land disappears, people are going to look for another place to hunt, and it could be in an area near you. I'm not saying that I think that's necessarily bad, but you might run into somebody who is disrespectful. That's unfortunate. I don't want to think about that, but just keep that in mind.
Well,
especially if it gets, a ball gets rolling and they start like, screw it. Where's the finish line? Well, 3 million acres. Let's sell 200 million acres. I don't know. Just spitballing here. Obviously, that's a crazy thing to say, but I think Mike Lee's insane anyways, so.
Yeah.
And I will sadly say that I'm disappointed in the support that Trump has actually had for it as well. I mean, he's openly admitted that he would like to see that portion of the bill, which does scare me because if he wants it, who knows what will happen.
That's the problem. Is the coalition that we only have two, technically three, because J.D. Vance could break the tie, but they only have 2 extra votes.
Yeah,
it only takes 2 senators, Republican senators, to say no.
Yeah,
it's all done.
Which I think we will get. I think we've already got several on board that will change the vote. I don't necessarily think that the Democrats are out of the water either, because some of these states, if it is a housing situation, there's some Democrats that would probably be like, oh, well.
They're not going to vote for Trump's. They're not going to vote for that bill.
Oh, they'll have to vote for something.
Yeah.
I
would put my life on there will be 0 Democrats who would vote yes. It's not because they don't believe in it.
No, I don't think there will be 0.
They hate Trump.
I don't think there will be 0 because there's already been some Democrats that have been flip-flopping on several issues when they vote. But
I'd put money down.
I'm not putting money down because I don't think it's a safe bet for either side of the aisle. No, I won't. Because I don't think it's a safe bet for either side of the aisle. I'd hate to take your money, and I'd also hate to give you money on it, because I think it'd go either way. But
you don't even want to. Okay, I would bet you a box of box shells, but if I win, I don't get anything.
So you just want to make a bet that's totally negative for you if you lose?
That's how sure I am.
I don't know.
I want a crisp high five.
I'll give you a crisp high five.
A little slappy to make daddy happy.
Sure, if you want to give me a box of bombshells, I won't say no to it. Anyway, um, so the second point I had to kind of round this out, unless you picked up anything or had any comments on the whole.
Not really. I mean, to be honest, I hadn't paid attention to like Ducks Unlimited or Delta. It makes me wonder why. It seems like a very easy cause to get behind for them.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder what's the driving force behind that. And I mean, because here's the thing is like you might have, if you look at a lot of those states, there's not a lot of like, Idaho's a waterfowl state.
California's a waterfowl state.
So I was getting there.
Yeah.
So like Montana's got quite a bit of waterfowl.
Oregon's actually pretty big. Oregon and Washington are actually pretty big.
Oregon and Washington, but like California is massive for waterfowl.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, I guess I hadn't paid attention. I don't even know if I've seen anything out of CWA, California Waterfowl Association.
Yeah, I don't know.
So like, I don't know. It seems odd to me. It makes me wonder if it's more of a political affiliation thing or if it's a money thing, or both.
Hard for me to say. Well, you're talking like, what do you mean by money? Are you talking like funding to push it out?
Well, like where do most? If I would argue, where does Ducks Unlimited get most of their funding from?
Private landowners.
Well, private landowners, but rich.
Yeah. No. Okay.
Rich.
You know what? I won't say
people of influence.
I guess I haven't really thought about it that way.
So who has their influence?
Yeah, that's true.
Just makes you. I'm not saying okay. Like I'm not pointing to the fact that like they're awful. I try to take the best. They have the best intentions, but it makes me wonder. Makes me wonder why. Because you think most of their base, because they're out of Tennessee, is a lot of Republicans.
Yeah.
Like Republicans in the Southeast.
If you want to, this could be a whole other podcast, and I'm going to say something outlandish, and I could very well see somebody messaging me and being like, you're insane. But probably a very unpopular opinion. I think we could probably strip down Ducks Unlimited and start over with it, because I think, for what you were just saying, I think Ducks Unlimited in particular, you see it in Delta too, but not as aggressively in my opinion. It's very much who's bringing the money in where. Because, for instance, I'm not calling out Ducks Unlimited here too much, but we've got several Ducks Unlimited areas in our state.
Yeah.
That are just, and I know funding, I know volunteers, I know that kind of stuff are borderline worthless. And I will acknowledge the fact that you probably say it about the local chapter more than anything, like what's going on, what are they doing, like yada yada. But you hear so many people, ooh, the duck or the heated ponds, that kind of crap. I'm obviously not. I don't agree with any of that. Like that's just a load in my opinion. But I don't know. Sometimes I do feel like Ducks Unlimited is just like, hey, give us money. What are you doing with the money? Where's it going? I would love to see a little more progress, and I get it. We don't have a big and or super crazy chapter in our state, so I probably don't see it as much. But
you go to the biggest one in Nebraska.
What you talking about,
the dinner?
Yeah, the dinner. Yeah, I go to that, but I don't know what they even do with any of their fundraising. For
a lot of it goes to the main organization, and then it just like goes from there.
But again, where's it going from there? That's my question. And it might just be as simple as me doing more research into it. And again, that's a whole other podcast. But
Well, yeah, I mean, okay. Is any organization like that perfect? No.
No.
Does it benefit certain people more than others? I agree.
Yeah.
Would I make the argument that as a general good, if you could say it's good or bad, I think it's good.
I do
think-
say it's good. I think you could run it at higher efficiency for
Yeah,
its purpose.
I agree with that.
I mean, I can say that about our game of Parks. Not
The
to
hard
go
part
down a
is
whole
like,
other rabbit hole, but-
and I think a lot of people struggle with this from the get go. Ducks Unlimited was never to benefit the local hunter.
yeah,
Yes, it was meant to benefit the local hunter through the optimization of the breeding grounds in Canada.
yeah,
Now, I wish, like, sometimes I wonder why they don't do more marketing campaigns on just the depth and what they're doing in Canada. I think Delta does a very good job of that. I mean, I support both of them as a whole.
Oh yeah,
but
I do too. But
then again, like, I don't disagree with you. I feel like that's a whole nother
yeah,
podcast.
like I said, it's a whole other podcast. But so
But yeah. You said you had one more.
yeah, my final point. I've seen a lot of this, because obviously, like, a lot of the campaign for this is being done through social media. I've also seen a lot of the backlash. This is more like a PSA, and some people will disagree with this on me, and some people are going to disagree with me on my viewpoints as well. I will sit in this chair and tell you that I voted for Trump, and there are several things that I agree with. Portions of the big beautiful bill or whatever. I also, obviously I wanted a secure border, and I wanted to see our country go in a better direction. I can sit here and tell you that I completely disagree with what's going on with this whole situation. I know it's Mike Lee bringing it to the table, but because it's under the big beautiful bill, obviously the Trump administration has to take the hit for it at the end of the day. And I've seen a lot of people arguing about it on social media. You'll get Democrats that are like, I don't want to ever see any of the people who supported Trump at any of these lands ever again. Keep in mind, some of these lands were created by people that would probably support Trump today and or take part in the outdoors like a lot of Republicans do in hunting and fishing. I will say one thing that's always surprised me about this whole situation is I'd like to know where Trump's son is in this whole conversation, because he is an avid outdoorsman. I can't remember his name right now.
Oh, man.
Donald Trump Jr. I'm so dumb. I mean, he is a big outdoorsman. In the West, too, in particular. He loves to go get big game hunting. So it's kind of a little odd to me that I haven't heard anything from him, probably just because it's his dad and he's got to support the whole thing. But I'm really long-winding this. I'm just saying that, like, can we all just focus on the main goal about making sure that we have our public lands to keep, and it not being about which side of the aisle is good or bad? Because the reality is you've got people on both sides of the aisles that disagree with Mike Lee and his stance and don't want to see these public lands sold. And then you likely got people on both sides of the aisle that would love to see it. I'm sure if you go to some of these big Democrat-led cities, they would probably be like, oh yeah, I'd love to see more housing and, cheap housing at that built, to get the homeless off the street, to help us or help our community, yada yada, try and bring down the price of everything. And those people have probably never even stepped foot on those public lands, but they're Democrats at heart. So I'm just saying, both sides of the aisle are on both sides of this table. So, like, can we just leave what administration's at? Like, I can't stand it. I can't listen to people that are like solely blaming Trump for it, which it sounds bad.
Well, like, here's the thing. I voted for Trump. Do I disagree with him adamantly about certain things? Yes.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
The tariff situation, not a fan. Think it's dumb, but that's a whole like. I'm
Yeah,
not getting that.
that's a whole thing.
But okay, so here's the thing. My biggest problem is, and this has been something that's come up since Obama, arguably Clinton, but in the last 20 years, well, heck, at that point, it's almost 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
We've gotten to this point where our political polarization has gotten to the point where if it's on your side, it's a real issue with tribalism, but like it's almost the point where you cannot criticize the side you're on. And it drives me insane.
Yeah.
And I deal with it with a family member because she's liberal.
Yeah.
But like literally, like you can point to things like this is awful. This is really not a good thing, and like literally will fight you tooth and nail.
Mm-hmm.
In this situation, I don't think Mike Lee just did this on his own. I honestly think Trump's behind it. Mm-hmm. Trump is an e-commerce Republican. He's big on free markets.
Drill, like, baby, drill.
He's all about it, right? I vehemently disagree with him on this.
I do too.
But that's the thing is like I'm willing to say like there's certain things I think Trump's an idiot or I disagree.
I completely agree.
I disagree with him on things. Yeah. But like, I think he's still a good president.
I mean, not to go totally off topic. I mean, could you imagine with what this country's dealing with right now in other situations? Iran. Could you imagine Kamala running this country right now?
Shay brought that up.
I mean,
last night.
Dude, like, it would be.
She literally wouldn't have done anything.
No,
and then she would have sat there and literally like piped up to Israel and like continued to condescend at them.
And whether you disagree with how all that's being done, the point is what I'm saying is what we're both saying here is we agree, in politics you're gonna agree with certain things and disagree with other things that your own party is trying to do. But why are we not allowed? Why is it so bad now for each side of the aisle even to be like, well, I don't disagree or I don't agree with this situation that my side of the aisle wants?
I don't know, man.
I mean, it's
gotten bad. It's not just a one side or other side thing. It really isn't. Like I've seen it on both sides, and that's why I think there's a sect of.
Well, I know plenty of Democrats that don't agree with abortion.
So like,
they would get in arguments with people about it.
There is a sect of what I would. It's kind of odd, but like, there's a sect of like, and I say this because I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, like very popular, big thing, but like there's a sect of guys like, or people, I should say people like Joe Rogan, and Oliver Anthony, the guy that Rich Man North of Richmond, he was on, and like there are so many people like that are just like in the middle that like disagree on both sides of the other, but like I think there's genuinely, I think there is coming a time where there's a lot of millennials and Gen Zs that are like that.
Yeah.
That are kind of one way or the other on certain things, but like
most of the people I know are that way. I know very few people that are like dead set one side of the aisle.
Dude, I'm about as far right as you can get, but then again, like there's certain things where it's like I'm about as free market as you can get, but on this, like no.
I mean, it's just So I don't know. I mean,
my dad's in a union. I'm not huge for unions.
Yeah,
I know that's probably not a popular thing, and my dad will probably give me crap about it because he might listen to this. But like, I'm not big on unions.
Yeah,
like I just like stuff like that. Sorry, guys.
Well,
like, it is what it is on a grand scale. But like, we'll pass that up.
Yeah.
But
so
is that it?
That's really all I've got. Get out and call your senators, email them if you don't want to.
The other thing I will say is, like, I want to make this out to people. Like, I think sometimes people take for granted public land. Like, use it before it's gone.
I mean, this is one level I can even talk about it. You know, our state does a lot of the leased public lands, the open fields kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I have several places that I wish were still public.
Yep.
that have come out of the leasing situation. You know, the owner sold it,
Yep.
and the new purchaser didn't want to, put it back into
Program.
the program. So, and that's kind of a small scale because that's private land that's being leased, but that's exactly what it looks like. You've got a piece of property that you spent years on hunting and certainly enjoyed and have a lot of memories from, and now like you can't get back on it. I mean, that's what this looks like.
Yep.
And again, I get it. I know we talked about how it's like this is less than 1% of like the land that they have put into this quote unquote pot, but that 1% somebody inevitably has spent time and made memories on and will likely be unhappy about seeing disappear.
Yep.
So call your senators, send that email if you don't want to talk on the phone. Do both. Tell your friends, your parents. I've had several long conversations with friends the last couple of days about this whole thing.
Don't make up fake emails, but I mean, if you do, wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I
kidding.
struggle with people that want to completely spam because a lot of times spamming will end up being a negative. Like I've listened to a few people that have been like, I've called senators from 10 of the 11 states or whatever.
Yeah.
And the sad reality is, unless you live in that state, those senators aren't going to listen to you. So you need to call the senators or email the senators of the state that you live in, because those are the ones that are going to listen to your vote.
That's the thing is like I called Deb Fisher, and it was like they wanted your name, what you wanted to talk about, and then your zip code, because they care about the zip code.
They care about the zip code.
And you know that it's going into an AI system that filters it.
Yep. I bet Deb Fisher doesn't even, she's gonna look at it the day of the vote, and she's gonna have something that says yay or nay. And unless she's got somebody deep pocketing, and she's...
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's all based on a report, like it's going in an AI system that gives a feedback to
an intern or something.
An intern or an agent that works for her, and then they give it to her like, oh, like this is garnering a lot of support. You need to pay attention to this. Or no, nobody really cares.
So,
yeah. All right, everybody. Appreciate you listening to this. Make sure to call. Make sure to email. Make sure to do something.
Yeah.
And then give crap to Ducks Unlimited.
But
All right, everybody. Appreciate it. Good night.